Thank you, Madam Deputy President. I too want to speak about the Birth Trauma Select Committee, and I really want to begin by thanking all of those women who took the time, went out of their way, revisited their pain, who told us their stories. It was an enormous response and it was very, very powerful. And one of the things that I recognise is that there were those women who told us of their bad experiences, but also how things had been improving. So I think this is an area where there is reason for hope, and I think the awareness that the work of this committee has drawn to these issues will fulfil a very valuable purpose. In the time available, there's really three things that I would like to touch on, and I'd like to pick up the comments of the Chair, the Honourable Emma Hurst, in relation to continuity of care. This was clearly a theme that we heard time and time and time again. And we certainly did hear about continuity of care from a known midwife, but also continuity of care from a known GP, especially for regional and rural women, continuity of care from a known obstetrician, continuity of care from a carer that the woman themselves was able to choose as best suited to be able to support her in her journey of pregnancy and birth. And if one change could come out of this report, that we could move to supporting women throughout their pregnancies with a continuous carer, I think we would do much to address the issue of birth trauma. And of course, workforce issues play into this in an enormous way, and there are no easy answers to this. One of the issues that was raised with us in relation to continuous care by midwife is the demographic of people who are midwives, the availability of having them available to women 24 hours a day. And these are issues that will take a lot of work, but I think that the work has begun. With continuity of care, I really want to highlight one of the other things that we heard, and that is that word care. We're not talking about necessarily treatment for women, although there are certain circumstances in which medical treatment is exactly what is required. It is that care of somebody who walks with that woman through her pregnancy and supports her during the birth. And I think we particularly heard about the need for care when we heard stories from women who had experienced stillbirth, but had been dealt with in wards with mothers who had given birth. Not often, I think, because there was any intention to hurt that woman, but because there was a lack of care. Perhaps there was a lack of time, perhaps there was a lack of awareness, perhaps there was a lack of resources, but there was also a lack of care, and that impacted very adversely on women. And of course, with continuity of care comes trust, which makes consent easier to provide, and an opportunity for that continuous education so that informed consent is able to be given. And this is the other theme that we heard a lot, the need for comprehensive antenatal education. It's funny because in one way we think we live in a world where we are awash with information, but it was very clear that there were a lot of women who were facing situations, especially in the birthing suite, when they did not know what to expect, and they were being asked to make decisions about matters for which they had not been prepared. And the idea of making informed consent has to be supported by having enough information so you understand the question that you were being asked to consent to. And it was very clear in what we heard that the better prepared women are, the more education they have, the less trauma they are likely to experience, because they have a greater sense of control, they have a greater understanding of what it is that they are being asked to consent to. And so I'd particularly like to draw attention to recommendations 14 and 16 of the committee, which go to the very important issues of developing standards and providing access to comprehensive evidence-based antenatal education, and and the way in which that ties into informed consent. Bottom line, every woman going into the birthing suite, in fact, connection with any obstetric practice at all, must have sufficient understanding of what the procedure is or what the experience is that she is about to undergo so that true consent can actually be given. And the last point I'd like to make is that what we heard very clearly is that what we were, if you like, abbreviating as birth trauma was not just about birth. It was about the whole journey of pregnancy, which hopefully ends in a live birth and a happy mother and a happy child, but of course on occasions does not. And for me, the most challenging evidence that we heard was from those women who received a diagnosis in pregnancy of some sort of fetal abnormality with their child. And the support that they frankly did not receive and do not receive in dealing with that challenging information and being able to process that information and being able to make their own informed decision about what is right for them, what is right for their family, what is right for that child. We heard stories, and in the 21st century, this is unforgivable. We heard stories of women receiving wrong information about the likely outcome for the child they were carrying. Wrong information given by medically trained professionals. And even worse, especially when you think about the really important theme of consent that ran through all of the evidence and runs through the recommendations from this committee, we heard stories of women being pressured into making decisions that they did not want to make in relation to the child that they were carrying. And we heard evidence of women who, having made a decision that they wanted to continue this pregnancy, they wanted to bring this child to full term, they loved this child, whatever abnormality or whatever difference from the normal curve this child may have had, they loved that child, they wanted to bring that child to full term, and appointment after appointment, they were being pressured by people in our health system to make a different decision. Fundamental lack of respect for that woman, fundamental lack of recognition of the importance of real consent, fundamentally unacceptable, and a total absence of that care that should be right at the core of everything that we do when we are dealing with pregnant women, both in their pregnancy and in birth. So I want to thank all those women who came forward, and I want to really emphasise that if we can move towards a place of real respect, real consent and real care, we will have achieved a lot to minimise the trauma that, sadly, some women experience during pregnancy and while they're giving birth.